Hi, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. Check it out. I got to give a big shout out to my show sponsor, my friends over at AVLX. I also have to give a big shout out to Charles Henry and Ace Young, the amazing performers and producers of the music behind the show, as well as the amazing people that make up the Hit Lab creative team, who are the producers of the show. Folks, I have a favor to ask. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, click that subscribe button to make sure you get alerted when new episodes are dropped. Thanks for tuning in.
The real success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of The Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and check it out. I've got a very special treat for you in the Hit Lab with me today. He is a director of brand strategy services and founding member at Brand Builders Group. He's just back from the Max Out event in Raleigh. I've got my man, Jeremy Weber, joining me today. Jeremy, thanks for hanging with me today, brother.
Oh, man. Dude, so good to be with you, brother. We go back a minute or two, I'd say. So it's just so awesome to come full circle and get to have this time with you and your audience, buddy.
Well, dude, we got a lot to talk about. I'm really excited about hanging with you today, just because I'm a client of you guys at Brand Builders, and like you said, we've been hanging out and knowing each other for a very long time. I can still remember. Sometimes you remember when you meet people, they stand out. I remember the first time I ever met you, and I'll tell that story in a few. But so I mentioned that you guys, you just had a amazing event, the Max Out event that was in Raleigh. Dude, what can you tell everybody about that? Seriously, it was a big deal.
Well, yeah, thank you, man. I mean, first off, yeah, it was a huge ordeal, and we all know how live events go. It's risky business. You know, you're dealing with lots of things that could go wrong. So all things considered, it was a huge success. I mean, and for those that don't know, our client Ed Milet, we're helping him. Just, again, we're not managing the whole thing, but we are a kind of a key part of his book launch team. The Power of One More is his book that's coming out, and this event we just ran, Max Out Live in Raleigh, was a signature kind of component of that whole book launch. The book launch has been going on for a minute now, but this is kind of a big build-up event, and it was a hybrid event. We had about 400 people in person that attended the event there, and had about, I think, 10 to 15,000 virtual attendees. And if you haven't seen the footage, it's killer. And I got to give mad props to Steven Scoggins and his team. And it was their facility. They're a strategic partner of ours at Brand Builders Group. And they that's their facility. They put on all the logistics. So mad props to them. But the one cool takeaway I'll have to say is, the setup was so neat because you had, 400 people, and this speaker lineup, we'll run through it at some point here, because it's the best of the best. These are heavy weights, and a lot of them that came to Raleigh, of all the places, Raleigh, North Carolina,
I know,
to come. But so you can imagine it's a 400. So it's super intimate in itself. But the way they had the kind of the Zoom attendees, the virtual attendees projected on the walls, it was almost like a stadium feel. You were in there as an in-person attendee, listening to these speakers, super intimate, and then piped on, projected on all the walls around you were all the virtual attendees via Zoom. And it was just had virtual chat rooms going. It was pretty special, man. It was one for the history books for sure. So everything went as planned. No major drama. We had a tornado warning roll through, power outage right in the middle of one of the major presenters, and our man Steven had a generator hooked up. So we had to pull out all the stops, but man, it was special. So yeah, it's good to be back home though.
Well, congratulations on that. It looked like every last detail was everything was manicured in the best and the best way, all the way down to the little bobbleheads that I saw at the end that you guys threw together. Dude, it was just the lineup was absolutely incredible. Who were some of the folks you guys had on that sucker?
Yeah, I mean, so Rob Dyrdek came in
I love Rob.
virtual. So you remember Rob, MTV guy, et cetera, all the things
His
with him.
his Lewis House second podcast that he done Lewis House is one of my favorite episodes of all times of any show. It was unreal how much gold he dropped in that thing.
Was that some of his time management and automation
Mm-hmm.
stuff a little bit? Did he get into that?
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
unbelievable.
I think there was a little bit of overlap. He got into kind of his investment philosophy, his portfolio, how he uses a ton of automation to just scale himself and his time. And so, yeah, it was killer. Everybody loved that. So he came in virtually. So he was one of the virtual presenters. We had Jenna Kutcher, who, I mean, she's just massive. So she was there in the flesh. Marie Forleo, I mean, like, big time in the flesh. Jim Quick, who's a big memorization guy. Dean Graziosi, I mean, like legend. John Gordon
Yep.
was there. E.T. Eric Thomas, hip hop preacher, was in the flesh. He came. Andy Frizella was in the flesh.
Oh my gosh.
Axe and all, came in with the axe and all, was there. Ed Milet himself, he gave like 2 different talks, as part of it. Mel Robbins came in virtually, so she wasn't there in the flesh, but we had Mel Robbins, and then Maria Menounos that was there as well. So like it was,
holy cow.
I mean, these are some heavy hitters. So, and just, I want to give mad props to all these people, because they were there. They didn't get paid, right? They were there supporting Ed and supporting his book launch. And that goes to show that, I mean, there's good people that, are calling in favors, but, taking time out of really busy schedules to go be part of something and support a good friend of theirs. And that goes to show that they believe in the message behind this book, The Power of One More. So, I mean, it's definitely something worth going and checking out, if you haven't already. But anyway, yeah, it was powerhouse. It was good to just get to hang out with those people and,
Mm.
get to meet several of them for the first time. And so it's good, but everything went off without any major drama, which is what's important. And Ed was really blown away. So that's what it's all about. So
you guys have been freaking killing it. And so I mentioned that you were the a founding member at Brand Builders Group, right? So when did you've been in the business for over 17 years, right? So how long has Brand Builders been around? Because I remember you were working with those guys before under a different title or a different company.
Yeah. So Brand Builders Group, we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary. So, I mean, in the big scheme of things, we haven't been around that long, and we can get into kind of the launch and how all that happened. But yeah, we basically, we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary. I think it's in August, and I've just grown really fast. We have about a little over 400 active members that are in our membership program.
Yeah.
We have probably around 100 to 150 like VIP clients that are more like the Ed Milets and the Lewis House and things like that. Just people that have more money than time, and they're just engaging with us in a different format. But we've been so blessed to kind of just hit the ground running and come out strong and see the growth that we're seeing. And I think what's most important is, we just love what we're doing, man. You get to work with really cool people, and, like yourself, that are doing big work, like impactful work, positive work. I mean, we're intentional about who we work with, right? We're not trying to blow up people that are divisive and causing problems, right? We're like trying to scale positivity. And so it's just cool to get the opportunity to work with who we work with and serve them in whatever way we can, and just be on the journey with people. So 4 years. Yeah. And we can go into the backstory if you want to, but.
Well, I know I've got here that you founded, sold, and helped to grow multiple companies. You've worked as a brand strategist for New York Times bestsellers, TED speakers, celebrity influencers, Shark Tank investors, 7-figure entrepreneurs. I mean, everything under the sun. I'm just so fascinated with the whole startup journey. And honestly, man, in just 4 years, look at the event you guys just had. How many companies can say that even have people that you're working with, like the names that you guys have? I've seen some of your colleagues, some of your other founders on the Lewis House podcast. And I believe he's a client of you guys as well. I mean, come on, man. You guys are hanging out with all the right people and working with the right people. So, like, how in the world does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been in the business, right? Brand Builders Group's only been around for 4 years, like I said, but a lot of the strategies, our curriculum, we have a whole nother episode like to deep dive on the curriculum. You're getting a little taste of it now.
Yeah, it's
But
awesome.
our curriculum is vast. I mean, we cover everything from branding and positioning to marketing to selling to scaling your business. So it's tons of stuff. And so naturally that's informed by years and years, 15 plus years of just entrepreneurship, business strategy, selling, marketing, et cetera. And really it's through, Rory and AJ Vaden are the co-founders. And then there were kind of eight or so other people that rounded out our founding team, the people that 4 years ago were kind of like part of this core team that started it. And really it was Rory's personal brand, from the prior company, where we kind of like, where the rubber met the road, and we kind of learned, we always like to say, our goal with serving clients is to help you not make all the mistakes we made, right? Like we learned the hard way with things over the long run. But I mean, I think through those experiences, we've really been able to shape an awesome curriculum that's supporting a lot of clients. But Rory, I mean, he New York Times bestselling author, a Hall of Fame speaker. So when it comes to, writing, launching, selling books, getting paid to speak, I mean, like, I think we carry some pretty heavy weight, like we've got a ton of experience in that space. But at the end of the day, personal branding is, about a lot more than just getting paid to speak or writing books and selling books. And so I think that's where a lot of, my background as an entrepreneur, starting, selling multiple businesses, I mean, all that, and not just me, but, the many other members of the team kind of goes into shaping our curriculum and our strategy and how we help clients kind of like do the same thing, basically.
That's right. Well, that was kind of what I was getting to is when you guys started, it was almost like the all-star team in the MLB just went and started their own team or something like that. I mean, or you got the best musicians from all the greatest bands and they formed their own, all-star rock band. That's kind of what you guys did when you came together and founded the company 4 years ago, because I mean, your trajectory has been off the charts.
Yeah. And I mean, if we go back to the launch, I mean, mad props to Lewis, Lewis Howes. I mean, we did basically an affiliate launch with him. And, if you know much about him, he doesn't promote people that he doesn't use and vouch for himself. He's not just trying to drive traffic and get, passive income from different partners, right? Like he values his community.
Yeah.
If he believes in something, he's willing to put it in front of them, and, he'll get a little kickback for that. But he's doing it because he believes it's serving his clients, and some of them want to build their brand and use that as a tactic to grow their business. And he's wanting to serve them the best way he can. And so, our history with Lewis is that, and I'll this is a story for everybody. A good lesson here is that, it didn't start by like selling him something. It started with serving. It was like Rory got hooked in with him in the early days and just like helped Lewis with his kind of first book launch informally. Right. And it wasn't a paid engagement. It was just Rory trying to help and serve. And I think there's, especially in this world of influencer marketing and all this stuff, like it's tempting to say like, who's got big reach and how can I tap into their reach to help kind of shortcut the system. But a lot of that starts way in advance, and you need to do, the old saying, if you got a deposit, put a lot of deposits in before you make some withdrawals. And that's where we were so fortunate to have put some good deposits in with Lewis, where he believed in us and wanted to help us, kind of get this thing off the ground. And boy, did he do that. Like with that one podcast interview and some of the collabs we did with him 4 years ago, we came out like a rocket ship, and we were kind of like holding on, and it's another good lesson too. Is like, if you're fortunate enough to be in one of those situations where you have somebody with a lot of influence that's helping to get you in front of their audience, make sure you're ready for it, because sometimes you're like, we got a bunch of sales calls and now we don't have anybody to run them. We're running out. You got a different set of problems. So there's a time to do things like that. But if you're ready, go for it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been growing almost parallel while everybody else, your clients are taking off as well. You guys are, I mean, that's a pretty incredible task because your clients didn't feel that or know that was even going on, but you guys are, that's how it goes, right? That's the story. Yeah. That's how the story's written. So that's pretty incredible, brother.
Yeah. And I mean, what's important to know is that, it's not like we were, any type of startup, there's an element of like building the plane in the air, like we're in the air, we're kind of tightening things up. A lot of the strategies, it wasn't that we were selling people, an idea, right? These were back strategies. We had done it with Lewis through his book launch, as well as, actually helping him scale his brand in some unique ways. So, I mean, these were validated things, and it was just that, hey, we were ready to get after it. And he believed in us enough to be part of that launch, which was, a blessing, and kind of launched us. And then it's been a fun ride ever since. So
well, that's awesome, dude. You had, let's go back a little bit. Let me tell everybody about how I met Jeremy. So first of all, when, a lot of folks are not always I'll just put it to you this way. The first time I met you, dude, it was just like talking to you right now. We had worked at the same bar where our wives worked at, and when you're the new guy, I was the new promo guy. Not especially in that industry. Not everybody's real respectful to the new guy. I guess because they come and go. And I just remember you were so. I remember Kirk had said, "Hey Nick, when you're done, if you take care of the bartenders, they'll sure appreciate it." So I remember I'd came up and I'd slipped you a couple bucks, and dude, you made me feel like it was the greatest thing I'd ever done when you did that. And like you're just such a cool, calm, like patient. All the things that I aspire to be when I grow up, you have those traits, man, and it reflects in your relationships with your wife and daughter, and you guys just got a second puppy now, right?
Yeah, we got 2 fur babies now, which, unfortunately one just peed on the couch out here. So, dealing with that type of stuff now. But yeah, the family has expanded in dogs here recently, but yeah, just one daughter. But yeah, man, well, thank you. First off, thank you for the kind words, brother. I mean, it's been a minute. I mean, how many years ago? It was like early 2002, maybe 2001.
That it'd been about 20 years ago, for real. Yeah, 20, 21 years ago or something like that.
But I remember, and it was maybe not the most glamorous work. It was fun. I mean, like at that time of your life, it's kind of cool having those types of jobs. But
we were in college too.
Yeah. So I mean,
yeah.
We'll take any kind of job we can get at that point. It didn't. Some of it didn't really feel like work too much at that time, but yeah, man, good memories from back then, and we've stayed connected all along the way. With our wives being close and stuff. So
that group of girls has one of the coolest like dynamics. I didn't know how to take it or like I didn't know how to relate to it for the longest time. And now that I'm growing up and maturing in myself, I start to see those relationships and I see how much they mean. I see the smile on her face when she gets to hang out with them. Like it's so cool, and it's just unique, I guess, because not a lot of people have those, and it's a big group of them that is so close. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and they go way back too. I mean, and that I think that just goes to show. I mean, life's got its ups and downs, and the more you can have that kind of inner circle that you can navigate life with. I mean, there's just certain people that you can't relate to you like other people can. That's right. And when you deal with stuff, that those are the people you want to be able to lean on. So I'm happy for them to, and especially in Nashville, everybody gets more and more distributed, and it's not easy to kind of like pop in and see each other and hang out, but they hold on to those relationships. So that's right. It's special,
That's right. Well, let's get into the fun business stuff. Because I'm somebody that has been working on building a personal brand, but really understanding the value that it brings. And as somebody who has hired a lot of people over the last few years and launched a lot of agencies and other small businesses, helped launch those, I've started to see the value and how important it is to have. It's almost like your personal brand is like, so you live in person and you have a reputation, but then what's online And your personal brand is almost like your reputation, like online, like,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
there's I feel like I'm late to the game doing it, but in the big scheme of things, you could go talk to 100 people outside right now, and half of them probably don't own their name as a URL. Some of them still aren't on social, or they'll be like, I don't want to be that person's friend because I don't know them,
Yeah.
and like all that kind of stuff. Like, what is, so first of all, what is a personal brand?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a basic question, but it's a really good one because I think it gets a lot of labels out there. But I think you did a good job of kind of summing it up. It is like, what do people think about when they think of you, right? And you can have, your reputation, and is it a positive reputation or a negative reputation?
Yeah.
Is it a big reputation or a small reputation? And that goes into what we call our reputation formula. Is it's results times reach equals your reputation. So you can have big results or small results. You can have big reach or small reach. Right? Those together equal a big positive reputation, a big negative reputation, a small positive reputation, small negative reputation, right? So, I mean, but it's really thinking about results. Like, what have you done? Are you good at some stuff, and you're really good at it? You deliver tons of value, deliver results for clients. And so what are your results? And then how many people know about it? And I think it's not that personal branding is brand new, right? I mean, I think people have been, social's been around for a little bit, right? People have been speakers, authors, like, this stuff of kind of like saying, hey, how do I make more people know about me? It's been around for a little bit, but I think with kind of the, the last, 5-10 years or so, as we've seen an uptick in kind of this influencer marketing type stuff, you've seen more of a dedicated maybe industry emerge, and content marketers and information marketers, all this stuff. And what I love about, just to kind of like put a bow around this, is that most people, I think of personal brands as like the speakers, the authors, the influencers, the podcasters, the whatever, right?
Right.
But that's really like yes, those are.
Yeah.
But that's the total misconception. Like, the way we look at it is that this is really like a new marketing strategy, and this is back, so what's cool is that, we work with speakers, authors, influencers, those traditional personal brands, but the majority of our client base is like traditional businesses that are saying like, hey, I'm trying to grow my business. I'm trying to differentiate my business from the competition. How do I do that? Well, you do that by, one, delivering good value, good product, service, whatever. But you also do it by saying, hey, I've got some key thought leaders within my business that are game changers, right?
Say that
and
again.
I know
key thought leaders.
Yeah, I've got some key thought leaders in my business that are game changers. And I know that if more of my ideal client or more of my ideal strategic partners that refer business to me, if more of them knew about these key thought leaders in my business, if they could know them, and then obviously they bring good value, so they're going to like them, and then they're going to trust them.
Yeah.
Right. That's how we ultimately use the power of personal branding within the context of typical business strategy or marketing strategy to accelerate things and get to the next level. So that's what's so cool is the way our curriculum structure and how we work with clients. We're just saying we're trying to build businesses, period.
Right.
Like, it's not just this business or that business. We're trying to build businesses. But our special sauce on how we do that is to say, let's take one or more key people within the business and let's elevate their personal profile or their personal brand, position them as thought leaders, make sure they're more well-known as the go-to expert in this space for whatever it is. And then that's going to naturally attract more people. And we, I want to rant, just kind of riff on this for just a second, but it's like 4 years ago when we launched, right? I mean, I think we were blessed with some timing, right? Like, I mean, again, personal branding wasn't brand new, but it was starting to get some traction and but to be honest with you, there weren't too many companies that were just like, look, we're a personal brand strategy firm. We know our lane. This is all we're going to do. And we're going to try to be the best in the world at it. And I think we came out and said, like, we're not trying to be everything to everybody. Like, this is what we're going to dominate. So I think we kind of hit some things timing wise, right? But then last year we did what's called the Trends in Personal Branding study, like an independent research study. We paid a bunch of money because we needed this to be like valid, like statistically backed, not a bunch of just like fluff that we paid to get somebody to tell us what we want to tell us, right? But fortunately, the way the numbers came out were like just really shocking. Is like there are some macro trends in the consumer economy.
Thank you.
Where like buyers, I think I'm just looking over here at some of these stats because there's a lot. So almost 3/4 of Americans are more likely to trust someone who has an established personal brand.
That's right.
Right. So it's almost like no matter what you're selling, you need to understand that people do business with people at the end of the day. So if you're not intentional about saying, yeah, we have a corporate brand or we have our kind of whatever brand and it is what it is, we need to have good brand awareness and trust and authority. I'm not dismissing that. But this X factor, especially with the new kind of younger generation and the way they consume information, the future is understanding how to also, in addition to your corporate branding or company branding, to also be firing on all cylinders over here with elevating individuals. And to be honest with you, I think that's going to go a long way to help you keep people too. A lot of people are tempted to be like, man, I don't feel like I've got my opportunity to shine in this corporate environment. I'm going to go start my side hustle or like whatever. So I think companies, will do a lot. It'll do them a lot of good to both just differentiate and grow, but also attract talent and retain talent.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of some extra added benefit. But there's tons of additional interesting facts in that study. But the bottom line is the overwhelming majority is just saying buyers, consumers, they want to know who they're doing business with. So as a business selling whatever, like you need to be thinking about this.
Well, it just goes back to 20 years ago when, it's no different than a celebrity getting paid to talk about a product or a commercial. They're a credible source and a trusted source, and it's to extend the brand. I know the agencies and companies that launch the fastest with us are the ones that came in. Literally, you can, based on how quick they will launch, will be based. There be certain X factors, and the biggest one being how much of a brand they brought with them when they showed up. Like, what was their reach? What was their network? What was their influence that they had? Because if there's people that are paying attention to you, you're going to have a way faster launch to get to the same place than somebody that doesn't.
Yeah. And it's, you never want to think about also cases where people get pushed out of businesses or like whatever, but the reality is that happens too. And something is like, people, they can't take your reputation from you, right? Like right. You can screw it up too.
That's
so
right.
Like, that's what you also want to be when you start getting out and more public with things. You need to be mindful of what you're doing, but there's an element of like, when you do some of this, like those people trust you as an individual, and, it gives you some leverage to say, hey, I'm bringing a lot of traffic, a lot of authority to this business. So how do I make sure I'm fairly compensated for that? But also, like, if things don't go down, like you should, and there's some legal things that maybe doesn't always work out this way, but you should retain your followers. You should retain all those things that go with you as an individual versus the company. So there's pros and cons, either way, but the bottom line is it's the future of marketing. It's the future of business strategy and growth. And if you're interested in innovating and pushing the envelope, you need to be embracing this stuff one way or the other. And
absolutely.
the last thing I'll say is, some businesses are like heavy, like the individual does 100% of the delivery, right? Like a speaker, author, right? That is like those typical personal brand or influencers, right? But I think, there's kind of this emerging space and more of the traditional business environment that's really exciting, and I think has some just ridiculous growth potential. So
unbelievable growth potential. If you just think that at the amount of the world population, and to have a million, an audience of 1 million people, that's a big milestone, right? And that's just a fraction of a percent of the world's population. So in my opinion, there's just so much. When you look at the influencers, and some people would have looked at me and said, hey man, that space is already getting saturated. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not even close. Like, it's just getting started.
Well, yeah, you're right. And I think part of it is yes, it's kind of saturated, but it doesn't mean that you dismiss the tactic, right? It's like you're maybe selling to different people. It's like any market. Like people get in early, they get in late. But the bottom line is the tactic is the tactic. It's proven. You need to understand the role that it plays within your broader business strategy. But at the end of the day, people are selling a product or a service or both, and you're just using this to drive more awareness of it and drive more traffic to it,
Yeah.
and sell more of it, right? And drive business growth. So
That's right.
so that's the cool work. I think that's what gets me most excited right now is looking at how do we take some of these kind of historical, kind of proven principles around personal branding, but integrate it into kind of conventional business strategy to really disrupt and kind of do some more innovative things. Because like you said, people have been doing endorsement deals and like that. I mean, that this kind of is what it is and it's fine, but I think that the bigger untapped opportunity is going to companies that have big marketing budgets. They're trying to differentiate, they're trying to retain people, they're trying to attract more talent, and basically coming in and saying like, look, we're not saying to dismiss corporate marketing and all these other things. We're saying you need to look at how to round that out with some of this other stuff, because that's going to be what helps you differentiate in the market. Because people can have similar widgets, but everybody's unique, right? Like God made all of us unique. And that's another thing I love about what we do is we get to do some deep work with people, like to help them kind of like figure out, why am I doing this? Like, how do I solve real problems that people will pay for? Because that's important. You want to make money. But how do I also do something that I feel connected to? Like this is unique to me. I feel called to really get after this and serve people and solve this problem for people. So it's very personal at the same time, which, anytime you get to do work that way, it has a bigger impact on you and a big impact on the clients. We get to see a lot of tears shed. So your tears are coming, Nick. Get ready, buddy.
I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. Well, it's like, but your personal brand is basically recession proof too. At the end of the day, and I look at it as like digital real estate because my wife and I love real estate, and URLs are a form of digital real estate, and but like if I'm hiring for the same job, one person walks in with no social media presence and one person walks in with tens of thousands of followers, I'm taking the person with tens of thousands of followers obviously personality and things like that play into those things. But if you're looking at the same person, basically one has social media presence and the other one doesn't, I'm going with the person that has social media presence. Those are assets they bring within to the company, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, you just, like you said earlier, the ability to activate, right? I have reach, I have influence, and obviously depending on the role that somebody plays in a company, that how much they leverage it or not. But what's really cool is even like, let's just take a more technical role. Like I've got a computer science background. So if somebody's a software engineer in a company and maybe they're like, I don't do marketing, I don't do selling, why do I need a personal brand? It's like, well, if you're doing killer cutting edge, like coding, let's say, and your goal is to attract top level talent to work on the engineering team alongside you, like, pushing out content, being known as this type of innovative programmer in some industry doing this awesome work, that's going to help you get another job down the road if you needed one, because you're going to be known as like this awesome person doing great work.
Bam.
But it's also going to help you attract other talent to come in and want to work alongside you, right? It's like there's so many people that are like the best kept secret. It's like, man, you are like, it's like, gosh, you got so much to share. It's just like nobody really knows about it. And
right.
Again, some people are like, that's not for me, I don't really want to do it. And that's kind of the work we get into with bigger corporations. We've got some really big, kind of publicly traded New York Stock Exchange type companies that, like big businesses. And you have to get a little creative with that. It's like, but the beauty is at the end of the day, those types of companies have a lot of resources where a technical person can just do what they want to do. And then you can delegate all the other not so fun work. Right.
And what you just mentioned is that's the most fun part, I would think, is taking a company that's probably a big giant company. That's probably the thing they're worst at. Is the thing that's missing, dude. There's a huge movement happening, especially amongst the big influencers. Bradley was talking about back when Grant Cardone first started killing it on YouTube with his Grant Rants things. Brad said he was in the car with Grant, and Grant had a speaking gig, and they canceled on him in the car, and he got pissed, and he was like, "Screw this! I'm going to make myself a celebrity." And that was when the Grant Rants thing started on YouTube, and he just really doubled down and focused on building a personal brand. And from doing that, he was able to diversify out of just car sales and stuff. Now he's one of the biggest real estate influencers on the planet, on top of all of his sales courses and everything else that he's done, all based off of a personal brand, which is, the 10X brand and the 10X influence from that, right? So all of his books and everything. And that was another thing he said too, was all of them say it takes 3 to 4 years of just pounding it without people, without companies that help like you guys do and shorten that process a lot. But if you just wanted to start putting content on social media 3 to 4 years later, 2 or 3 times a day, every day, you'll have something that's worth something, man. So it takes some time. That was one of my next questions for you. It's down the line a little bit. So I've got 3 key topics that I wanted to touch on today. When it comes to your brand, finding your brand DNA, creating captivating content, which leads to building your revenue engine, right? Because you do all this to make money at the end of the day. Right? Some sort. So, I love how I think the brand DNA thing. I think that is one that just sounds like really cool. I think you guys crushed it when you guys came up with that phrasing. So, we talked about what your personal brand is and how do you build it, but how do you find your brand DNA? Because this is what you guys have been helping me with. Because believe it or not, I've been doing this a long time. You asked me questions that I had to think about, and it should never be that way. I should be able to roll right off my tongue, right?
Yeah. I mean, so at the end of the day, when we talk about, hey, this idea of finding your brand DNA, what we're talking about is how do we uniquely position you in the market where we're kind of able to stay true to who you are as an individual. There's tons of people that are just saying, hey, I'm going to copycat the next person. And the bottom line is that you're not going to build a durable brand or a durable business that way. Right. So we have to how do we uniquely position you in a way that stays true to who you are? But we're also solving real problems in the market. And we feel that at the intersection of who the world needs you to be and what you were designed to be is where your uniqueness lies. And we have a process we take clients through to basically a series of 6 questions and a variety of exercises that basically help them identify their uniqueness and their unique positioning in the market. But one of the key first things we do is we help you try to get clear on what is the one word problem you solve? What is that one problem you solve for your kind of ideal client? And you solve a lot of problems at the end of the day. But what I'll tell you is going deep and trying to kind of laser in on that. Not only does it help you from an external marketing and selling perspective as you transition into that downstream, but the clarity that comes from being this is what I think I'm about. Yeah. If I can go out and help these group of people overcome this issue, I feel like I am uniquely positioned to solve that problem better than anybody else out there. And I'm about to get after it and go do that. Right. How you solve it, what it is based on what you're selling. Right. But at least understanding kind of the why. That's a big foundational component of kind of how to uniquely position yourself in the market. And I think you can attest this, that there are so many bells and whistles and shiny objects, right? It's easy to get pulled in tons of different directions on the latest trends or techniques or this gadget or whatever, right? And it's to me, the power and simplicity of being this is what it's about. I'm grounding myself in this. And this is kind of my mission and what I'm going out to do. And then we do tons of downstream things to build on that and help you actually go out and scale solving that problem for people. But if you don't do that, you don't have kind of that anchor point. Right. This is what I'm about. This is who I'm serving. And now how do I help them break free from that, get to a better place? That then gets into your methodology and things like that. But at the end of the day, the way we ultimately determine your uniqueness is we try to go through this balancing act of, what's the world need you to be so people are willing to pay you for stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to build a durable business if nobody's willing to pay you anything. I think we know tons of those people, right? It's they're living their best life, but they're not making any money. And then at some point, something's got to give, right?
Thank you, yeah.
And then there's people on the other end, though, that make tons of money, but they're miserable and they're not living into what they were designed to be. And so that's a cool part of some of this front end work we do is we say, what's that sweet intersection between what the world needs you to be? So people are going to pay you to come in and serve them and help them in this way. But how do we also do something that you feel uniquely positioned and blessed to do? And you're going to be passionate about grinding and doing it. Cause I mean, building a business is not easy. I mean, and at the end of the day, we're helping clients build businesses. It's just through this unique approach. And so you got to be ready to grind.
That's right. Oh,
And so knowing why you're doing it, right? The why and who you're serving and all that, like grounding in that is killer. And if you don't get it right on the front end, it's like you're kind of building on a shaky foundation and things start to break down at scale,
Why do you think it is that, so many of the average people don't understand how important that this is, that they're like, they're a person just like anybody else, right? Why, like some people value themselves enough to think I'm somebody and I can help people and I need a brand. And some people think that it's silly. Like where is the disconnect from now I'm telling you, there's a massive movement happening right now about personal brands. You can go on Instagram or TikTok right now, and some of the people that you've been paying like the people that I've been paying attention to for so long, they're all talking about this. Like it's happening right now. I mean, and you guys have been killing it already. It's just like, oh my goodness, the traffic that's about to come y'all's way is going to be ridiculous. But like, what's the disconnect between the average person and that just doesn't understand the value in this? Because like my kid, I've bought his URL, right? And it's already, he doesn't know exactly what it wants to be yet, but he's starting to, and a lot of the things that we're posting, or that he has his little YouTube channel, it could be removed if we wanted it to, but like we're teaching him the value of a personal brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, people kind of get the idea of social media, right? Like they get it and, all that. I think, if I had to think about why certain people resist it, because I think there's a level of understanding on like, how does this help with growing the business, right? Like, this is just another marketing or sales tactic and, that's a tool in the toolbox to grow. That's a lot of our education we're doing with typical buyers on like why you need to be looking at this, and this needs to be part of your growth strategy as a business, period.
Yeah.
But I think if you dive a little deeper into the individuals, and I'll be totally honest with you, Nick, like, I mean, I struggle with this too, right? Is like, some people I think are hesitant to be like pump themselves and want to be out there and like want to be this influencer or like do all this stuff. I think they kind of see it as like, I'm just kind of pumping myself up and like I'm a little more humble, or I don't get into that, or like whatever. And I'm resistant to this idea of kind of promoting myself, let's call it.
Yeah.
And using these typical mechanisms like social media, and then trying to go out and be a more front end speaker and thought leader in your space, right? They just maybe are like more, they want to be an introvert, let's say. But the big thing I have to remind myself, just being totally transparent with you and your audience, like the thing I have to remind myself, because you are putting yourself out there, and it's not for everybody, right? Some people just don't want to do it. But I look at it as like, if you believe that you've got some abilities, like God's blessed you with some skills and you can really help some people, right? Through your experiences and your stories and your expertise, right? It's actually a disservice to not do some of these things to try to serve people at scale. It's not about you. It's really not about you promoting yourself. It's about saying there's people out there. And we say this a lot. When you feel, you that you feel like that something's inside you, like something's like pulling you a little bit.
Yes.
We like to think that that's kind of a signal being sent by, it's coming from somewhere. It's beyond my pay grade, like what it is and where it's coming from. But we all know that feeling. And we kind of feel that that's somebody out there that they need to hear from you. They need your help in some space. And so you got to get your mind right around it, that it's not me trying to position myself as an influencer and I'm the know all be all. It's like, I'm just trying to serve.
There you go.
And I can't be in every networking event. I can't be at every whatever where I can share a story or help people and maybe help them work through some bad things. And so if you're not intentional about doing this, you just can't reach as many people and help as many people as you otherwise could. And so you need to just flip it and be like, this is just how you serve at scale. This is how you serve at scale. And if you believe you can help people, you need to be at least putting some thought into this, because otherwise there's people out there that, need your help, and they just, may not get it otherwise. So, that's one last thing I want to add on this, because a lot of people, you kind of alluded to, like, space is saturated and XYZ.
It's not even close.
Yeah. I mean, there is true unique content, right? There's definitely innovations in areas where but the majority of content is evolved, right? It's like, hey, somebody came out with something great and I applied it. I learned a little tweak on it to make it even better. And now I'm building and building and building. And so don't ever worry about, like, I feel like what I have to say is already being said, because it probably is. All right. But the reality is that based on a ton of factors, there are people out there that can only hear that message from you. You may be saying the same thing Tony Robbins is saying, right? But for different reasons, maybe they don't like Tony's style, or they're not, hooked into his ecosystem or whatever. And I just use Tony as an example. But don't ever worry about, like, my content's not unique. You're unique. Your stories are unique. How you talk to people, connect with people are unique. That is irreplaceable. And so that's what you need to ground yourself in. And you need to go out and just know that there's certain people that, they can only hear it from you. And if you don't lean into this, there's going to be people out there that need help and may not be able to get it. So,
absolutely. And knowing too that, like, you're going to get some haters along the way. Right. That's part of it.
Yeah.
When the moment you start getting them, that's when you're doing something right. You're getting to enough people, because everybody's got their own opinion, and they have every right to that. And I'm not for everybody either. But I've had more people tell me that they watch all the clips, or they've listened to every episode, and they get so much out of it. They love me having the guest on, and it's just, again, if the same person that will pull over and help somebody change a tire out of the goodness of their heart, like, you can help people on the internet, man. You just can. And you can, in your stuff, you can help them on their time, because they can go get to it when it's convenient for them, or whenever they can. You know what I'm saying? Just like you can only go to some networking events, but your thing can live online 24/7, 365.
Yeah. And I mean, and the other reason I'll say is, think about all the crap that's out there, all the negativity and divisiveness and just stuff that is not helping society at all. Yeah. Like, that's another big reason we say, like, we serve mission-driven messengers. That's our avatar persona. And, like, we're trying to amplify positivity and good. And that goes back to what I said earlier. We're selective about who we work with, but we need people to rise up and be sharing positivity and helping people. It's just to kind of combat all the other crap that's out there too.
Say that again. Mission-driven
messengers.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, man. Like, there's two sides of the news. There's good news and bad news. You just don't you have to really look hard for the good news. Last time I checked, the good news was still news. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, it doesn't sell. So, I mean, as well, usually, but I mean, again, we each have a role in changing that, or at least doing our part, even if it's a small one. It all adds up. So
that brings it full circle. What we were talking about, it's not being saturated. The good news is not saturated. The good news is not saturated. So look, folks, it's easy to. I think it's kind of easy to stand out if you get working with the right people like you, and you're putting and you have a clear cut. Like, we're all consumers, and I like to ask a lot of the new businesses when they're getting started. First of all, if nobody knows that you're in business, they can't buy from you. It's totally impossible for them to do that, right? So they got to know that you're there. If they go to Facebook to look for whatever it is that you do, are you there? Is your brand represented there? If they Google you, is it on the first page or the 10,000th page? Like, all these things matter, right? And I ask a lot of them, like, so the places that you buy from, what the last 5 places you bought from, what were they? Most of them, it's like Amazon, this, that. And it's like, well, like, what did you like? Why them? Why not another one? Why them? Why do you like them more? And they knew exactly what the place did, or the company did. They knew exactly why they liked it, and so on and so forth. but we don't even ask that about ourselves, even though we consume it every single day. I was guilty of that too. Like not having a clear-cut brand message, man, it's so incredibly important.
Yeah. And I think, when that's part of this, finding your brand DNA work is how do we position you? And that's, what problem do you solve? How are we making money? How do we monetize this thing? Who are we solving the problem for? How do we position yourself uniquely in the market? And then what's the messaging we're using, right, to connect with your ideal client? And I think people's attention span, they want everything yesterday, right? So we get some clients that come in and they're like, man, I feel like I'm going backwards and like this is taking a minute. And it's like, look, if you're serious about breaking through the noise, you got to do some of this internal work to really lay a solid foundation. But when you get that right, you can push forward with confidence versus like chasing every little thing and feeling like you're reworking and like you're always chasing something. It's like, this is what I'm about. This is what we stand for. And we're going to grind it out because it's not going to be quick, right? You got to commit to it. But it's a noisy world. And, if you don't do some of that, you're just going to get gobbled up in all the noise out there.
That's right. So what are some of the various ways that you can monetize a personal brand?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, and what's really cool, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. You'll see a lot of overlaps with like just typical business offerings, right? Because at the end of the day, we're just, using this to sell products and services. But we have an acronym called PAIDS, PAIDS. So the P is products. So you think of physical products, could be, journals, could be a book, could be, like swag, could be, et cetera, right? So think of just physical products. A is ads and affiliates. So this would be for people that have pretty big audiences already, and they're looking to monetize those eyeballs by either driving traffic back to affiliate partners and getting mailbox money off that, or running ads on their platform to audiences and just getting, paid for impressions and things like that. So I is information products, PAI, I is information products. So think of this as courses, membership programs, things like that. So think of, digital information products. So that's typically, when you think of like content marketers or this information marketing and all this, personal brand stuff, it's a ton of courses or memberships or things like that, right? So that's going to be an option too. D is deals. So if you have a lot of authority and influence, you can actually go get traditional brand deals or sponsorship deals or whatever, right? And then S is services. That's just time for money. So that could be you speaking, getting paid to speak, or it could be you doing coaching or consulting or running events and workshops. Think of anything that's time for money. So basically we take clients through that and say like, hey, here are the options, right? Let's get clear on all the options at a high level. And then let's do some short-term planning. What are your short-term kind of like things we're focused on? And then what are the long-term things and map out? We use something called our golden grid, which lets us kind of just get clear on what's the overall monetization strategy. So yeah, PAIDS is where it's at.
Well,
we want you to get paid.
That's right.
To get paid.
Well, that's it's not a business if it's not generating money. It's a hobby at that point, right? And hobbies are great too. We've mentioned the word monetize a few times, and I sometimes take for granted. My wife used to tell me, Rand used to tell me all the time, that Nick, your words matter, and they never really mattered too much to me because in the sports world, they don't. Like, we're not very athletes. We said a lot of curse words and stuff. We didn't think through a lot of things, right? We're very rough around the edges. And so a couple years ago, we were talking about, what were we talking about? And we were talking about something similar. And I was in front of a few dozen people. And I realized as I was looking around at the faces, I was like, I don't think we're all saying the same word, but I don't think we're all talking about the same thing. And I asked a few people, what does this word mean to you? And they all had different definitions. So I wanted to monetize is a word that gets used a lot. And I think it gets, I don't think it's always used in the right context, right? So like I'm big on asking my old buddy Webster here, what words mean, guys. Folks, check it out. So monetize, okay? It's to earn revenue from, like an asset or business or something like that, or it's to convert into or express in the form of currency, right? So if
There
you're
you go.
monetizing your brand, you are earning revenue from your brand, right? So which is where the PAIDS acronym really comes into play. And
Yeah, and it's a cool, just to add on to that, like, we're got a podcast here, right? We're on a podcast, and a lot of people make the mistake of saying like, well, a podcast is on my monetization, strategy. And it's like, well, no, the podcast is a distribution channel.
That's right.
Right. That's how you're going to build, drive drive brand awareness, grow your platform, increase your reach. Right. And through that, then you will monetize by driving traffic back to something else. Right.
Damn.
It could be affiliate partners that sell something. Could be you run an ad spots, at different segments of your podcast. Could be you driving traffic back to your own free calls or products or services. Right. But don't get it confused. Right. The podcast, just like your Instagram account or whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not itself what is being sold. Right. So anyway, just some little nuances there, but we see that mistake a lot with our clients.
Oh man.
So it's just like a little correction.
Well, it's you guys are really you guys are incredible at the way that you have created such amazing process or framework on developing these things. Imagine if people that like the houses that everybody lives in, if they didn't have strict processes and framework along the way to build those houses, what kind of a disaster that would be in. And literally we live in something that we don't even pay attention to enough of how it happened to, like our favorite restaurants, the greatest places that give us the best customer experience, just have the best process, and they make the fewest mistakes because of that. Right. And it's very clear and thought out.
Yeah. And I think people need to understand it. Like I said earlier, that also means it may be a little bit slower in the beginning, but I think at the end of the day, nobody should be interested in the quick win stuff. I mean, that's not us. We're trying to build durable businesses. So whether you're working with us or anybody, right, it's like, if you put in the work on the front end, right, you're going to set yourself up to scale. If you're trying to just chase the latest trend or tactic, you may see some wins, but you're always going to be chasing the latest trend or tactic. And that gets old after a while, like it wears you down. So
there's two things that we've been talking about. One, which is the importance of a brand, and the other that the average people, just for whatever reason, we're not as educated as we should be. One is personal brand, and the other one is like money, financial literacy, and stuff like that. And really, how can you monetize things? I think you'd be better at monetizing something if you understood a little bit more about money and how, like, all things take time. Everything, just like I said a minute ago, if you're just going to go through the social media thing to build a brand that way, it's 3 to 4 years, 700 to 1,500 clips or videos per platform per year. I mean, and then that's if your content's good, that's how long it takes. If content's not good, it takes longer. So let's move over into content a little bit, and because that's where the financial part comes in. Like, you have to be like you mentioned it before, and I'm gonna totally use it over and over again. Deposits before withdrawals. Oh my gosh. Why does everybody feel that way? Why does everybody single person that walks in here is like, hey man, I want to start an agency. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, hey man, I'm not making enough money. I'm like, well, how many people know you have an agency? Like, are you any good at it yet? Have you developed the skills? How great at you were walking when you had been working on that for 2 weeks? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, and I think a lot of people, it's just this instant gratification kind of environment we live in now. Everybody wants something yesterday, and that can, derail your business before it even, and your brand, your personal brand, before it even has a chance to really take off. And so I think that's, you need to commit to it. Right. And I think what's really important to understand is that how you approach your strategy to build and monetize your personal brand is heavily influenced by a lot of things. Some people are like, hey, I've got good money coming in. I can take my time. I can play more of the slower long game. And I'm just trying to build influence. And I'm not trying to make money sooner rather than later. That heavily influences how we market, what we're selling, who we're selling to, et cetera. Right.
Yep.
Other people are like, dude, I got to get to cash ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to say the fastest path to cash is you as a service. Don't be trying to go build a course right now because you don't even know if your content's any good.
That's right.
You're going to spend all this money building out this, spinning up a learning management system, recording all these videos, launch this thing. And if it flops, like, okay, well, it's the first time you've gotten any market feedback. And so it's like, there's a process to this. And it's like, hey, let's organize how you do what you do. Let's get clear on who you're serving. Let's go out and get in front of them the quickest way possible, which, to be honest with you, is often not social media, right? Yeah. They hamper your organic reach so much that doesn't mean you don't do it, but a lot of it's conventional sales, like outbound tactics, right? And so, but if you don't get your positioning tight, I don't care if you're putting stuff on social or using your network to reach out for referrals and trying to then pitch somebody. If you don't have a good pitch, you don't have a good product, you don't have a compelling way to talk about how you're going to help them see these great results and where you're going to take them to, you're going to have a hard time selling stuff regardless. But, it's interesting. And it's complicated, right? Like there's a lot of moving parts, but it's done every day.
Everybody agrees that as a business, especially if it's a brick and mortar, that it's cosmetically, it looks good. You know what I'm saying? The paint's fresh. The parking lot's paved. There's not, it doesn't look like it's been abandoned for 10 years. And there's a big disconnect with the content that people put out and not understanding that that's a form of their storefront, just like their website and things like that. So I know I took my website for granted. For a while, we're actually rebuilding this crap out of mine right now because I don't feel like it is as good as a lot of the content that we're getting out there these days. I feel like it's actually not. It doesn't hold up its end with the level of where my personal brand is going right now. So, how do you create truly unique content that breaks through the noise and keeps people engaged?
Yeah, so this kind of, and for the listeners, these three, finding your brand DNA, captivating content, and building your revenue engine, these are three subsets of our overall curriculum. So 3 topics of 12 that, kind of are part of our core curriculum. But captivating content really is like, how do we logically organize your thought leadership? And what's so powerful about this is that people can't follow what they don't understand. So I don't care.
Say that again. Say that again.
People can't follow what they don't understand, right? Like at the end of the day, we're trying to get people to do something. And we're telling them like, look, if you'll just do this, I promise you're going to get some amazing results and I'm going to help you in all these ways, right? And but your methodology, all these great insights that are in your head that we all have from our experiences and our stories and our trainings and all this stuff, right? If it's a bunch of if it's all over the place, and I think a lot of people probably feel like, man, I got great ideas. I just feel like they're kind of scattered. I don't know how to logically kind of talk about them and take people through them, X, Y, Z. Like you're going to have a hard time getting people to wrap their head around it and then do what you want them to do and then see the results on the back end. And so that's what's really cool about this is we take people through a process of how to logically structure their content. And what's really neat is that if you do this right, how we package that for distribution is TBD, right? It's like, hey, once we logically organize your methodology, like, your curriculum, how you do what you do, whatever, that can easily be packaged in a book, right? That can easily, a subset of that can easily be packaged in a paid talk, a keynote, right? This can easily be packaged in an online course or a membership program, right? We can even use that structure to identify micro pieces of content that you use to power your organic content marketing strategy, right? To drive traffic and build trust at scale through those social channels. But if you don't get it logically organized, not only are you going to have a hard time delivering results, but you're going to, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, you're going to feel like you're reinventing the wheel. Like, hey, I created this course. Now I got to create this coaching curriculum. Then I got to write my book. And it's like, everything feels like there's overlaps, but it's a little different versus saying, here's how to do what I do.
Mm.
And I'm going to now choose to package it in different ways to sell it.
That's
But
right.
how I do what I do is how I do what I do. And
That's right.
I intentionally structured it this way because this is the best way to do the work that needs to get done to see results.
Yeah.
And that way you're just wash, rinse, repeat on stuff. And it's a huge part of scaling. But again, tons of people have great ideas. They just, it's kind of like this upfront foundational work again. Like if you don't do it, it has a lot of downstream negative effects.
People, a lot of times you'll hear, I'll ask, we'll go through, we'll do an audit on their social media, and they're like, well, I don't have that platform because I don't like it. So thinking about what you just said a second ago, it's when there is some overlap, because you know what, Nick might read books, but he might not do online courses, and I can get the information there, right? So it's where, again, it's giving me the outlet to go where I go to get it. Just like, there's some places you can take out, you can dine in, you can order it to be delivered. There's all these different options when it comes to that. And that's when it comes to the social media stuff. Like for me, I totally have favorites too. There's some that I spend some time on for fun, and some that I don't ever even look at unless it's for business or whatnot. But everybody else has an opinion too, and it's important that my stuff's there wherever they're at.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes back to like who's your ideal client. What are the demographics and psychographics, and then like that heavily informs what platforms they're likely on.
Yep.
Because the reality is like, if you kind of just put your posting on autopilot across a ton of platforms, you're going to get pretty mediocre reach, because you're using scheduling tools and things like that. So there are kind of advantages to saying like, hey, these are the ideal places my clients gather. I'm going to like really dominate that. And then I'm going to have kind of a loose presence in some other areas. And then once you build a team up, right, you can like dominate multiple ones. But in the early days, we've just seen people like try to be everywhere, and they're the bottleneck. And then they end up like halfway doing it everywhere. And then they don't get much organic reach because they're not aware of the latest features that Instagram just rolled out. They're still doing some legacy posting thing that doesn't get any organic reach.
That's right.
So there's like a little bit of tactic to it, but this is really great way to think about it. At the end of the day, people don't pay for information. They pay for organization and application.
Oh man.
And so, people don't pay for information. They pay for organization and application. And so a lot of people are like, man, I can't post this. I'm giving everything, all the goods away. And it's like, well, if you do this process of saying like, here's how I get you results. Like there's 10 steps to how I get my process, my methodology, right? And then you say, what are all the questions your ideal client has about each step of this process, right? Each of those questions are micro topics that you can answer one at a time and power your content marketing. And the reality is that you're going to give everything away for free, but in all random order.
That's right.
And then people will be hooked and see tons of value. And then they'll be like, man, this is great, but like, I'm not sure how to piece it all together and do everything. Let me buy your XYZ to get help with an organized methodology and get help with like how to apply it and do it. Right. But you got to build trust. And if you're not willing to serve and give some of that away for free, then who knows when you'll get that next opportunity, right? We always say, save the best for first.
My God.
It's like, like lead with the good stuff, because, it's a noisy world. You may not get a chance to hook somebody the next time.
First impressions are important. Yes, they are.
Yeah. Amen.
Oh man, dude, that was, Connor, there was so much gold in the last like 2 minutes. That was unbelievable. We're going to get tons and tons of awesome clips just from that. So I was a guy that, structuring all the ideas, that I had and coming up with the framework or the methodology or the process, like, again, the greatest companies have provide the greatest customer experience, and all, like, Chick-fil-A is one that everybody knows. They're famous for a few things, one being the drive-through. How many restaurants are famous for a drive-through? You know what I mean? Like, and it's because of the framework and the methodology in which they've created a process, a customer experience that's better than everybody else's. One of my favorite movies is the Founder, the McDonald's movie, where they literally are drawing on the sidewalk the speedy system to churn out burgers and shakes and fries faster for a better customer experience. I know I took a lot of that stuff for granted. Every single time I have a problem with if there's an issue that I'm having within my own company, I got to go. The one thing that the process or the framework provides is it provides me checkpoints to go in and troubleshoot, so I can find out exactly where it is. It's almost like, what chapter in the book are you in? You know, it'd be hard to find your page if it wasn't broken up for you like that.
Yeah, that indexing system, right? Like, and I'm the same way. I mean, like, again, like I said, these three kind of high level topics we're kind of pulling questions from today. That's 3 of 12.
That's right.
Our process, our methodology is 4 phases, right? Branding, marketing, selling, scaling. Within each phase, there's 3 topics. Within each topic, there's 6 pillars, right? This is our architecture for our curriculum. If we didn't have that architecture, I would not be able to talk with you, Nick, or anybody about like how to brand and position somebody or monetize 1 second and then pivot to how to scale a business and what are the right systems and processes. So it helps you, just like you're saying, it helps you stay organized and traverse your own thought leadership when you have it logically organized. Otherwise, we all know our minds like, oh crap, I'm scattered, I'm all over the place. Yep. So when you get this structure and just reinforce it for yourself, it has tons of benefit for yourself and operationally how you scale. But what's more important is it helps your clients actually wrap their head around it and do what you're trying to get them to do and see the results, which obviously has tons of benefits as well.
Well, I was Rhiannon and I talked about wanting to work with you guys for a long, long time. And there's 2 things that you said to me that always stuck out and really resonated. And I was like, so one, you asked me some questions that I didn't know the answers to, and you're like, dude, when you have those questions answered, like that's what we can do. And then the other thing is, when I was building this brand, it was behind the scenes amongst everything else that we were building at the time, right? So, and I asked you a question about affordability. I'm like, how do people afford this? And you said, the real question is, how do you afford not to? How do you afford not to? How do you afford not to have the framework and the process? That's and for me, that's just one of the forms of value that you guys bring, because the other one is the network, the umbrella of amazing people that you guys have.
Community.
Oh my gosh! Like literally, people move to neighborhoods to be a part of communities. They go to schools and churches to be a part of communities. Yet we don't always do that in like the people that we want to hang out with and in the business world. And that's a massive tool you guys bring.
Oh yeah. I mean, just look at the story of how we launched that we talked about earlier with Lewis. Like that was community and enabled that. Like the network and relationships enabled that. Without that, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so I think that is, while we've talked a lot about curriculum and strategy and all that so far, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that was kind of like interesting, but it is a big kind of untapped aspect of our ecosystem. Is like we brought people together, but we're just now starting to see certain members of our community that are like pioneering innovative ways to like collab with one another. And it's like, dude, like that's going to be the X factor, because otherwise, if you're just trying to build your own audience from scale, like from zero, like it's a grind. But we all know the fastest way to get where you want to get is somebody else's audience, right? So like if you're strategic about how you're helping each other out and identifying these strategic partnerships, and whether it's our Brand Builders Group community or your own, like it doesn't really matter. You just need to understand the importance of leveraging your community, right? And some of that is your online community with your social following, but also realize it's your offline network is just as powerful. And like I said earlier, oftentimes will move the needle faster to see results, especially if you're in the early days of just trying to get traction and sell something, right? So
what are, like, mistakes are made. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's undefeated, especially in business. And you mentioned before, a lot of the value that you guys bring is there's a lot of lessons you guys learned along the way that I don't have to because you already did, right? So my journey, even though it still takes a lengthy amount of time, it's much shorter because of the knowledge that you guys bring. What are some of the biggest mistakes personal brands make when it comes to their digital marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll give you one that's maybe not exclusive to their digital strategy to start, but it also plays into it. I think we like to think about if you have diluted focus, then you get diluted results, and that's something that anytime you think about, hey, I'm serving multiple audiences, I'm trying to sell multiple things, like naturally you're gonna not be as good at doing multiple things at once as one thing. And so I think that's a huge thing we hammer home. Like some clients come to us and they've got established businesses and brands and lines of business that are rocking and rolling, and we're helping to spin up a new line of business or something, right? But regardless of where you're at, you need to be very intentional about saying, like, what are we focused on trying to sell right now? And if we get traction with this, that's going to give us the launch or the jump off point to get to the next thing. Because Amazon, right? We all know the Amazon story, started off with books, right? They didn't sell everything under the sun right out of the gate. They started with books, they got traction, they strategically diversified out into complementary lines of business or products, and then built to where you can get anything now. Gary V, right? Like he was the wine guy. Yep. Now Gary's everywhere, right? So if you're not disciplined enough, and this is one of the biggest mistakes, people just try to do too much at once. And it's like, look, it's okay to know you want to do a course at some point to scale this, but you need to get product market fit with your methodology by doing coaching or consulting or something you as a service to start, because that market feedback and iterating is going to let you make money sooner, which is critical for some people just to keep the lights on, but also tighten up how you do what you do and then be able to package that in a more scalable method downstream. But if you try to come out the gate saying I'm doing 2 or 3 things at once and trying to sell and market 2 or 3 things at once, you're naturally going to have diluted focus and then see diluted results. And so I think that is that's something that it negatively impacts a ton of our clients. And we have to say, like, look, let's get disciplined. I know you want to do it. We'll map that as downstream, but this is what we're focused on doing right now. And let's light it up. Right. So that's a big one. And then when it comes to digital strategies, I think we've all heard that saying, like, Twitter rich and dollar broke.
Oh man.
That it's like, you need to understand that, and this is in the marketing aspect of our curriculum, we get into what's called how to build a revenue engine, like your digital strategy, something that's working 24/7, 365, just that you're not having to do everything, right? It's all using marketing automation, et cetera. But a fundamental part of that is understanding how to play out and meet your audience where they are on. If they listen to podcasts, then have a podcast. If they're on Instagram, be there. If they're on TikTok, if they're on wherever, right? So like meet them where they're at with these micro pieces of content and hook them, but don't build your digital business on rented real estate. Like that is a killer, because we all know that, like, those social platforms can go down, or those social platforms can change algorithms. And all of a sudden it's like, I mean, like Lewis, I mean, he's got multi-millions of followers now on different, but I mean, I just know from talking with him, it's like, tons of followers, and like the reach, like his ability to actually reach them, he just reaches a small percentage of them. That's because he doesn't control that. So it doesn't mean you boycott them and say, like, I'm not doing it, but you need to be mindful of how you meet them where they're at. But you intentionally are trying to pull them back to what we would call like your relationship headquarters, or like a place where you control the user experience. And then you can capture their information by building your list, right? And doing funnels and lead magnets and all that fun stuff. And then you're pivoting into like traffic that you own. You can direct market to them, and you're diversified in your traffic strategy. So I just think, that'd be another big mistake when it comes to digital specifically, is that people just put all their eggs in one basket, and then all of a sudden something changes and they're like, crap, like, what do I do now? And it's like, sorry about your luck.
That's so spot on. I hear I actually watched a interview that Gary Vee did years ago, like in 2014 or something like that, which is an eternity ago in the form of the internet. But he said he was basically talking about Facebook and Instagram and I think Twitter were the three he was referenced at that time. And he was like, look, guys, he's like, these places are like one gigantic party and everybody's there. He was like, but you're not throwing that party, to literally talk about exactly what you were just talking about, right? So you don't, when the party's over, the party host decides that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you get enough people's attention when you're at that party, you can carry them. If the party gets shut down, you can take them to the next party's at my house. You know,
exactly.
After parties at my house type thing. So it was. I mean, that was so spot on. All right, and then let's see. Had another. The importance of the personal brand. So I work. I'm fascinated with, and I work with a lot of churches, and I'm always telling the pastors have such a big heart, and they're always looking out and not in. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see churches make is the pastor doesn't have a personal brand. Because if you think about all the churches that you really know, you know who the pastor is. The pastor has a big enough. So like some of our businesses are bigger than they would be because my personal brand helped fuel them, right? Mm-hmm. So in a good way. And I see that a lot in churches, and I tell all my pastor buddies all the time. I'm like, dude, like, you need I think every business once if you start a business, you should have a podcast. I think it's an unbelievable source of content. It's one of the greatest sources for high quality content. It's a great reason. Like me and you might not be hanging out and talking today, work related, if we didn't have the podcast to do today. So it's an unbelievable networking tool. But I'm always on the pastors. I'm like, you need a podcast that just talks about the sermon from the previous Sunday. You'll build a brand around it. You can have clips from all these things. It's just, you're just putting the good word out there more and more and more and more and more. And they'll come around eventually. But because you know what, like you guys had that big event and stuff. The churches used to call those revivals.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And all the people, so many people are still like, some of my greatest two mentors were two pastor friends of mine. And because that's who I go to first when I'm struggling with something, is I go to my pastor. That's as a mentor. And people aren't going to them as much anymore. They're going to the influencers. They're going to the biggest brands.
Yeah, which you're right, may not always be the best source of wisdom on how to navigate. I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, where they may feel it's like a little bit of self-promotion, and they're just, they're a disciple, right? Like they're out there just as an extension of the church, and I don't want to self-promote and like it's not about me, but I think you're a conduit, right? Like you are a conduit for something more than you. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a pastor in a church or not, right? Like it's not about you, but again, you have an opportunity to just meet people in a different way. And I think we've seen with the pandemic, especially churches, like they had to figure out the online worship thing, and they're seeing that like, crap, we're able to serve a much bigger audience now, just distributing information in a different way. And
that's right.
And I think that opened a lot of eyes to like, wow, if we really embrace this idea of content marketing and really try to elevate the key pastors in our church, right, we just have a better chance of sharing the good word and, helping people. And hopefully they, like you said, hopefully they come to us if they're in need, because they know us, like us, and trust us, when otherwise they may have not had that opportunity, right?
Well, two things that we talked about a lot. You were talking about how, some people might have already talked about something you feel called to talk about. And like, look, imagine what the landscape of music would look like. Like your favorite artist today, whoever it may be, they were influenced by somebody else that came before them. There's a guitar riff or a sound that made a song huge that was totally influenced by somebody that came prior to them. That's just a part of the evolution of the world we live in, right? And growth, and I think that's like, it's incredibly important. And then like, knowing that like, it's so cool now that like Ethan loves the Foo Fighters. That's his favorite band, and he's seen them one time. But he's actually seen them. He sees them 5 days a week because when we work out, that's who we're watching them live.
Yeah,
in the background,
part of the family.
That's right. While we're working out, and with the pastors and stuff, people go to church and they hear it on Sunday, but science says that over half of that's going to be not retained when they leave. And imagine if you could just go back and there was clips and all these. It's just accessibility. Accessibility is so big.
Well, you think about Eric Thomas, hip hop preacher, right, who was speaking at that, Max Out Live event. I mean, it was so he's huge. I mean, he's a preacher that's using his platform to share, the good news and help.
He's a great example.
And it was so cool. Like I overheard a conversation. One of the guys that was working the event, wasn't eavesdropping. I just happened to hear, but it was just like the guy came up to him and said like, "Hey man, I thank you. Like, my wife and I we went through some hard times here recently with something I didn't hear all the details, but he goes, thank you. You helped us get through that."
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, dude, that's priceless. You talk about getting that type of message from somebody. You think about how he probably gets that type of message a lot, and think about the energy, like talk about lighting you up and being like, man, I'm serving people. I'm helping them get through some crap. And it's like, I'm grinding every day to try to do this now. That's because I'm having an impact. I'm having a real impact on people. And that's what helps people, work through the hard times of building their brand and business when they get that type of feedback. But that's what it's all about at the end of the day,
Well, there is no way we could talk about all the things that the value and tools and knowledge that you guys bring in one podcast episode. I mean, you could do a whole podcast just around that, and we probably should. But I do want to make sure you guys do something that's really cool for folks that might be wondering, am I a good fit for them? Am I their client, right? So for everybody out there that's going to be saying, man, like I want to learn more because I'm intrigued and there's a whole lot of stuff and like this is an episode where people will have to go back and watch it multiple times because there's been so much dadgum knowledge, detailed knowledge, specific knowledge dropped on them today. How could they? What are some of the tools that you guys have to help people get enrolled?
Yeah, I mean, so first off, hope, like Nick said, I hope you got tons of value from this today. I mean, that's at the end of the day, we practice what we preach, and there's tons of free resources. Yeah, I know Nick's going to put all the details to get to the company website and my socials and all that in the show notes. So like you guys can get to that and just get free stuff if you want, but like just as part of supporting clients and serving them, we actually do a free, it's called a brand strategy call with anybody that just wants to check it out. What's awesome is it's like an hour-long call. This isn't just like, hey, 15 minutes, I'm going to try to sell you something. It's a legit hour-long call with a strategist that is designed to just deliver value first and foremost. And then ultimately, if we feel like we're a good fit, like we can talk about that, but that's not really the intent. But if you think like, hey, I'm already doing this, and I like Nick, I'm trying to like take my game to the next level. Or maybe if you're just like, hey, we're not doing this, but I think we want to, maybe check it out. Like just do the free call. Like there's no cost, no harm in that. And you just go to freebrandcall.com/JW. So that's freebrandcall.com/JW. And there'll be an opt-in to just say, hey, I want to schedule a free call, and you can rock and roll with that. So, but beyond that, hope you just got tons of value from this.
Well, it's there's a couple of things, because I know I struggled with it for a long time in my journey, trying to figure out where the best place to put my money and time and resources are, and what I found out is the two big things I mentioned before was the process and framework. Every last detail is like I'm thinking so much more clearly, and just from being asked the right questions and being tasked with the right things. But the other, and then obviously the network. But there was something that we learned in the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, which was it, like you had kind of alluded to before. about a year ago when I'd asked you the last time is how can you afford not to? That word how, when you I was always told, I heard it multiple times, we can't afford that in my house, in my household, and I was taught since then to just change that we can't with the word how. How can I afford this? And what you guys, the shortcuts that you guys are creating for me, there's mistakes that I won't make that I would have made without you, are worth their weight in gold. And that time, over the bigger you get and the better you get at everything, your time grows in value immensely. And then when you look back, you see how great of a investment it was, because it's an investment in yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've had clients come and say, like, I just dropped 10, 50, 100K on something. And it's like, it was total waste or like a large waste. It's like, we've made all those mistakes. We're not trying to say we're perfect, like, and there's, we're always evolving and optimizing our curriculum to make it better. But I think the bottom line is our goal is to try to help you avoid those dead ends and make sure the money you are investing is sound. And we try to avoid some of those, those big mistakes that cost real money. So
absolutely. I think based on just for what I know my time is worth now, and what the value of the mistakes that I have made, and some that I would continue to make, I would say that it's I'm way ahead. I'm way in the black with it's an investment in myself, and it's just it's at the end of the day, it's how could I afford not to do it, not to surround myself with people that are experts at something that I'm not an expert in yet, So it's fantastic, man. So all right, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys, right? So obviously the URL is brandbuildersgroup.com. And as you're going to see, folks, the more you communicate with these guys, their website is absolutely impeccable and beautiful. Every last detail, all the way down to does anybody who does y'all's, even your email signatures are like, they're just absolutely perfect. Every little detail is just so thought of with you guys. Nothing slips through the cracks.
I'll give mad props out to our creative director, Nadine Hanafi. She's basically, she gave us a huge facelift on all our visuals when she joined the team, 2-3 years ago. So it was, so she's the mastermind behind most of the visually appealing stuff. Her and the team, right? There's the creative team. There's more than just her, but yeah.
The communication is second to none. But every one of them is just like, you just get it, and it's just like, man, it's just your game is so high when it comes to that stuff. It's absolutely incredible, and I would encourage everybody to check it out for sure, man. So your brandbuildersgroup.com, all your social is at the Jeremy Weber.
Yep. Yeah. Right. On all your typical platforms.
Man, that's awesome, dude. Is there anything else that you'd want to leave the folks with today?
Man, I think I'd just reiterate one thing is whether you're building a personal brand or building a business or whatever, it's hard work. Right. It's just not easy. And if you don't know that already, then heads up, because you got to grind. And I think most businesses fizzle out before they get to realize a lot of the fruits of their labor. And if you don't really connect with the why, hey, I feel like I am uniquely positioned to do this and nobody else can do it in the way I can. And here's who I'm serving. Some of those foundational things we talked about earlier. It's hard to push through those challenges of building a business. And so whether you're working with us or doing it on your own, really ground yourself in that, because, serving those people that, have a hard time being served by anybody else is really why all of us are doing this.
That's right.
And so stay focused on that. That's what's most important at the end of the day. And that'll help you keep pushing through and get to the other side.
When it comes to the time, Rhea and I, when we commit to things like this, we give it at least 2 years, 24 months. We have little checkpoints along the way, maybe every 6 months or 12 months. But like when we decided we were going to go all in on the studio and the podcast and video, really when we went into video, it was like, dude, we're going to put our head down and not look up for 3 years. And we're gonna obviously have some checkpoints and see where we're at, and if there's any things we need to do. But we're not stopping. We're not even going to consider quitting anything for at least 3 years and giving it that time. And I think that's what the mistakes we made earlier and the mistakes we see young entrepreneurs make all the time is that, like literally, like they're like, man, I hadn't made any money in 2 months. It's like, I know, and you're still not any good at it yet, like imagine what you'll make when you're good.
Started.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you're right. Well, there's tons of wisdom in that, Nick, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, brother, I was so excited to be able to get a little bit of your time today to hang out and talk, and we have some amazing people from all over the world. I'm still blown away with how large our audience is getting and how much it's continuing to grow. But folks, they're literally right here in Nashville, Tennessee, Brand Builders Group, and you guys are. I'm calling it right now. You guys are already killing it, but like, and it's folks, it's not saturated. I'm telling you, it's not saturated everybody needs a personal brand, and it's just getting started. There's a movement that's going on right now, and it's the whole landscape's about to change. And it's all centered around what these guys are specializing in. So,
yeah. Hey man, thank you for the opportunity and
right.
for all the great work you're doing, brother.
Well, folks, once again, you are not late. You are not late to the game, so I don't want to hear it anymore, right? Right? You are not late. You're still pretty early. It's still in the early stages. So, Jeremy, thanks again for hanging with me today. It was awesome. And folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.